Welcome to the Endo Belly Girl podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Chavez. I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner and restorative wellness practitioner on a mission to change the way that we support women with endometriosis. Endo is a full-body disease that impacts your mind, body, and spirit in countless ways that aren't often addressed the way that women truly deserve. We are here to talk about all of it. Please keep in mind that the content of this show has been created for educational purposes only and should never be used as a replacement for medical diagnosis or treatment. Hey, my friend, and welcome back to the Endo Belly Girl podcast. Have you ever been told that your lab results, test results are normal, but you still feel anything but? Maybe you still have fatigue that won't budge, daily bloating, pain that knocks you out, or PMS that runs your life. And yet, the doctor says everything looks fine. If that's you, I want you to know you're not alone, and you're definitely not imagining it. In this episode, we're talking about why normal doesn't always mean healthy and how functional nutrition can help to uncover what's really going on beneath the surface. So, as a functional nutritionist, I work with clients with endometriosis daily, and I would say probably 99% of them come to me saying, I have been told that all my labs are normal, but I'm still feeling like crap. That's a story that I hear pretty much every day, and that's really why I wanted to record this podcast episode, because this is where functional work really shines. Because it's all about digging deeper, looking for optimal health instead of disease. We're going to unpack this more a little bit later, and leaving no stone unturned when it comes to your health. Now, conventional medicine absolutely has its place. I have no issues with it, but it just doesn't solve all of our problems when it comes to our health. And I do believe that functional nutrition is really the answer for chronic symptoms and chronic disease. Recently, I actually even had a client with me who had a ton of blood work done recently with her doctor, and after all of that was basically just told that everything was normal, everything was fine. And so I said, well, how about you send me that blood work, and I'll take a look at it as well, but from a functional perspective, and I actually ended up finding quite a few markers that were out of balance, which is quite common. And it gave us a good idea of where to dig deeper and where we might want to go with additional functional testing. So she just felt relieved to know that, okay, there's actually something showing what's going on instead of just, I feel like I'm crazy, which can be so frustrating. And now she's finally feeling better. And that is a story that I see pretty much every single day. So we're going to unpack all of that today. So first, you guys know I love my myths versus truth, just some quickie myth busting here. So myth number one, if your labs are normal, there's nothing wrong with you. The truth, lab ranges in the conventional world aren't designed for optimal health. They're designed to catch disease. Myth number two, you would see endometriosis on a scan if you had it. The truth is that most imaging actually misses endometriosis unless it's severe or you have a large endometrioma or something that can be seen on a scan, or maybe if it causes organ damage, but it's very, very often missed on scans and often will have to be diagnosed laparoscopically through surgery. Myth number three, if you're not getting better, you're just not trying hard enough. Oh, I hate this one. This one just makes me cringe. You might be eating a super clean diet and doing all the things for your body, but just not feeling great. And the truth behind that is that you're likely missing the why your body's not feeling great. And that's what functional testing helps to uncover, because there's so much that there's no way you would know how to support your body unless you actually know what's going on beneath the surface. So anyway, that's what we're going to look at today. So first, let's talk about standard tests that we'll often see. right? So as far as scans, that's going to be things like ultrasound, CT, MRI. Those are the things that are often ordered when you come in saying you're experiencing pelvic pain. Now, it's possible that scans like that might pick up endometriosis. It's definitely possible. I've certainly heard stories of that, but it's also very possible that it might miss it. There's no guarantee here. So I just want to throw this out there. Scans, by the way, aren't something that I personally work with. That is definitely something that's more from the medical side of things. But if you suspect endometriosis and it's not showing up on any scans, I do encourage you just to dig deeper. See if you can find a doctor who specializes in endometriosis, who really understands it, and who you really connect with and resonate with, because that can make a huge difference in your care and what your next steps might be, instead of like, oh, your scans are clear, you're good to go. So I just wanted to throw that one out there. What I really want to talk about today is more of the lab type work. So oftentimes that's going to start with blood work. And I feel like most doctors will order blood work of some kind. That's quite common because that's an easy way to kind of see what's happening in your body. And you'll often get things like a complete metabolic panel, a complete blood count, a lipid panel. Maybe you'll get a couple of thyroid markers like TSH, maybe an iron panel, maybe some hormone levels. Kind of just depends on what kind of doctor you're working with and what they're looking for, which is fine. Honestly, those are all things that I will often look at as well. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with getting those markers done. Where I see the issue is that, number one, the way that a conventional doctor will interpret results within the world of conventional medicine is basically they're looking for the presence or the absence of disease, not optimal health. So in other words, something like blood sugar, for example. Are you in the diabetic range or are you not? But let's be real, by the time you're in the diabetic range, things have gone pretty far. And so somebody who maybe falls within, things are a little bit elevated and maybe they're trending in that direction, it can be very easy to miss that if you don't know what you're looking for, or you have a doctor who's just looking for whether you're within that diabetic range or not. And that's just using one example. That can happen with pretty much any marker. Because in general, when it comes to functional blood work, I'm looking at the same markers, but I'm just interpreting them in a different way because I'm looking for the optimal ranges. Like where do we want that marker to be for optimal health? That's basically the gist of it there. And then secondly, when we're looking at things like hormones, for example, we're really only seeing a snapshot in time, right? So things to be mindful of are, when in your cycle was this? When in your cycle did this happen? And it also, just looking at the hormone levels themselves also doesn't look at how your body's using hormones, which is a really important piece of the puzzle that a lot of people miss. So again, I think it's a good thing looking at hormone levels in your blood, but just know that it's only a small piece of the puzzle, not the whole picture when it comes to hormones. And number 3, those conventional labs, they just don't look deeper. So sometimes things look okay on the surface because basically what they're doing is they're using just kind of the surface level markers. So for example, coming back to the blood sugar example, we might as well just stick with that. Fasting glucose is something that you're going to see on a typical blood panel, and maybe that's looking really good. But it only gives you like a small snapshot in time, because that fasting glucose marker can change very quickly and easily. So it could change from one day to the next. And most doctors aren't going to dig deeper and look at markers like insulin and HbA1c unless they actually suspect something like diabetes going on. Whereas I actually like to see insulin and HbA1c on pretty much every single client, just because it helps to get a better picture of what's happening in the blood sugar because, well, a lot of reasons. I don't want to make this an episode all about blood sugar, but your blood sugar impacts your hormones, it impacts inflammation, it can impact your adrenal health. There's so many wide ranges that your blood sugar impacts, besides whether you're diabetic or not. And those are the things that just aren't looked at within the world of conventional medicine. So, thyroid is another good one before I keep moving on here. So thyroid, oftentimes, I would say more often than not, when I get blood work that a client has had done through a doctor. They will often bring me maybe only TSH, which is thyroid stimulating hormone. Maybe they'll add in T4, but I almost never get a full thyroid panel unless they have a known thyroid condition or a strong reason to suspect one. But only seeing TSH only gives you a small piece of the puzzle because TSH is thyroid stimulating hormone. So that is the hormone that basically sends a signal to the thyroid to start creating hormones and, whether it needs more or less or whatever. So it doesn't actually show us how the thyroid is functioning. It just shows us what the thyroid is being told. So it allows you to miss a lot of things because I can't tell you how often when I run a full thyroid panel, which I again do on pretty much every client, that TSH will come back normal, but then I'll see other markers come back out of range. Maybe there's a thyroid hormone conversion issue. Maybe your thyroid is getting those signals from TSH, but isn't actually acting them out. I mean, there's so many different things that can be going on there that we want to pay attention to. And I think the other thing that's important to know is that conventional tests are really designed to detect disease or emergencies, not to detect dysfunction. And so often when there's symptoms like, fatigue and inflammation and some of these things that we're experiencing on a day-to-day basis, it's not really a true disease state. It's not an emergency state. It's an underlying dysfunction that we need to support. So I think that that's important to know. And, even if you have one of the best doctors out there are some really fantastic doctors, and I don't want to shortchange them. But the reality that I know I have experienced many, many times, and I know so many others have as well, is that the time that you have with doctors is quite short. I've often been in the room with a doctor for maybe 10 or 15 minutes at most, and you just realistically can't dig super deep during that time. When you're jamming in patient after patient, day after day after day, there's just not time to really deeply investigate things that really do need to be deeply investigated. So the system isn't necessarily broken, although it certainly does have some issues. But it's just not built for chronic, complex conditions like endometriosis. So it's kind of like using a smoke alarm to try to detect a gas leak. It's just not the right tool. And I believe, obviously, since I do what I do, that functional work really makes a huge difference and can really fill in some of those gaps that just aren't filled by conventional medicine. So let's dig into what that really means. If you're unfamiliar with functional work, if you've been listening to this podcast any length of time, you probably have some idea, but I just wanted to really open up this conversation of what I'm kind of letting you look behind the curtain, behind the scenes of what I'm really thinking and looking for as a practitioner, to kind of give you an idea of what that's like. So first of all, I wanted to talk about lab ranges, the conventional ranges versus functional ranges. So there really can be a huge difference between what we're looking for in functional versus conventional ranges. And I talked about that a little bit already. I used some of those examples like blood sugar and thyroid, and those are super common things that can be out of balance. The way I think of it is suboptimal, which is not the same as having a disease, a diagnosis, but it definitely can impact the way that you feel by quite a bit. So, and why wait until things have gone so far that you are in a disease state before you get support for your body? I mean, everybody who I talk to, most of the clients who I work with, they're coming to me because they're like, hey, I want to be able to show up better for my kids or my husband or my work, right? I feel like I'm not able to fully live my life because my symptoms are holding me back. And that's not okay. We're just taught that it's okay to just live with chronic fatigue and pain and all these symptoms that we shouldn't have to be living with on a daily basis. The GI stuff, I haven't even really talked about that today, but you guys know I'm big on all the GI stuff, right? You shouldn't be bloated all day, every day. You shouldn't be constipated all the time or have the runs every day. I mean, so many things, right? Now, coming back to those conventional ranges, this is just talking about blood work. Normal in that range just means you're within the average of the population. But here's the thing. So much of the population is not very healthy. I mean, look around. So many people have some kind of disease or another. They have autoimmunity. They have diabetes. They have, thyroid issues. They have whatever might be going on. I mean, how many people do you know who are really, truly healthy and aren't relying on medications or aren't just getting through their day? And so as the general population gets sicker and sicker, those normal ranges, as the lab describes, are not really describing what health looks like anymore. And that's something that, I think we should be aware of. Because you can technically be in range and still have signs of inflammation, hormone imbalance, gut dysfunction, all the things. So I think that's important to look at. So let's take a look at how functional nutrition can fill in those gaps. So first of all, you have to look at the context of it. And I think that's the beauty of functional nutrition, because not just because of the tools we have, but also the time that we have. When I work with a client, I typically meet with my clients, at least at the time of this recording. This is how I have it structured. At the beginning, we meet about every 2 weeks, just as we're kicking things off and getting things going. And then once things are a little more settled, we kind of have things figured out, then we'll shift into meeting just once a month. But any of those meetings, we're taking our time. I mean, the very first meeting together, we're meeting for 90 minutes and we're really looking at all the things. I actually just had a client call the other day, and when we were finishing up, she goes, "Wow, nobody has ever asked me all those questions before." Because I'm really trying to look at each client as a whole person. I'm looking at their whole entire experience, their history, their lifestyle, their symptoms, and that's why I allow ample time to do that, right? I'm not going to see, 30 clients in a day, because I'm going to take my time with each one. So we do 90 minutes for the initial consultation. All of our follow-ups are between 45 minutes to an hour. And that really allows us time to talk through what's going on, to troubleshoot if there's issues going on, because it does come up, right? Even functional nutrition, it's not a perfect science. Sometimes there's reactions to a supplement or a gut healing protocol, and we have to work through that and kind of come up with a plan B. Sometimes there's just questions about what they should be eating, what they shouldn't be eating. I mean, there's so many different things, or new symptoms are coming up that they have questions about, need support on. And so that's where I think the functional work really shines in and of itself, assuming you're working with a good practitioner who's really willing to do that thinking and work with you and talk things out with you. It's also a reason that I really don't like template medicine, meaning if this is happening, you do this. I mean, I think it really requires a lot of individuality. That's part of looking at the whole person. You're not just a jumble of symptoms sitting in front of me. You are a human being with human experiences. And it's my job as a practitioner to work with you through all of that, right? Bio-individuality isn't just about what foods are working in your unique body and what aren't. That's certainly a part of it, but it's also your human experience and how your body systems are interacting with each other and all the things. I mean, there's so much. So just to give you an idea, when I'm working with a client, I have really a wide range at this point of functional tests that I use in my practice. I'm just always trying to learn more and include more things. But this is kind of the foundation of what I do. So definitely a comprehensive blood work. So that's looking at inflammatory markers, nutrient status, blood sugar patterns, full thyroid panel, looking again at those functional ranges, looking at liver health, so many different areas that we're looking at to kind of get a comprehensive picture of your whole entire body, not just one individual system. So we can see how things are interacting with each other, right? I really love to use, so the blood work is like I said, the same thing that a doctor would run. It's just that I tend to look at more markers and I'm interpreting it in a different way. Then there's also the functional tests like a GI map, which is a stool test that can help us look at gut infections, leaky gut, inflammation. There's Dutch test, which is a dried urine test for hormones that allows us to look at how your body's metabolizing hormones, not just the hormone levels themselves, as well as your cortisol patterns. I can also do things like SIBO testing, which is small intestine bacterial overgrowth, which can really be a huge factor when it comes to bloating. I like to look at micronutrient panels, organic acids, mycotoxins, if there might be toxins that are impacting your body, hair tissue mineral analysis. I mean, there's so many different tools. Not to say that everybody needs to do all of those tests. If you have just all the funds and time in the world and you want to do all of it, by all means, I'm happy to. Or we sprinkle it out over time is something I'll do a lot with clients as well. But I really love all of that because it allows us to get an inside look at things that you're probably not going to even talk about in a traditional doctor's office. Because what all of these functional tests do is that they don't ask, is there a problem? They ask, why is this happening? And that, my friend, is a game changer for healing. And that's really, again, a big part of what I do as a practitioner. I'm not just seeing, for example, oh, your estrogen is high. Okay, let's give you a supplement to fix that. What I'm doing as a practitioner is helping you to figure out why that estrogen is high. Because anytime there is a hormone imbalance, that is not the root cause. A hormone imbalance is a symptom of something deeper happening in your body. And so that's really what we're looking for is, okay, we have this going on. Why is that happening? What is causing your body to do that? And that I really believe is the biggest game changer for healing because that's really what a root cause approach looks at. And also, I'm really looking at the whole body. I'm looking at how those body systems interact with each other, right? So oftentimes in conventional medicine, you'll have, say, a GI doctor. You'll have an endocrinologist that works with hormones. You'll have an OBGYN. And those doctors have like their one specialty area, which is great. It's not necessarily a problem. I think it's great to have doctors that specialize in a certain area. But what I do see sometimes is that those doctors will just kind of focus on their one area and not really consider the rest of the body and how that may have come to be an issue in the first place. So that's really what I love to do is just to tie it all together. And because endometriosis is a full body disease, right? Endometriosis is not a reproductive disorder as we have often been led to believe. Endometriosis is a full body disease. And so in the functional work that I do and so many other wonderful practitioners out there, we are really looking at the whole body and how different body systems interact with each other. And I think that is really, really important. So just as an example of that, something that a lot of people don't talk about, I mentioned the hormone piece of it, right? How if hormone levels are out of balance, let's just say the estrogen is elevated because that's common with endometriosis. It's not everybody, mind you, but it's common that there's actually a strong connection with gut health when it comes to your hormones, right? Because, for example, if you're constipated, if you're not pooping every day, you're likely recirculating estrogen in your system. So that's like step one that I'll look at if somebody has high estrogen. It's like, okay, are you pooping every day? Are you able to eliminate that excess estrogen? Because the thing is that our bodies are built to make hormones, to use the hormones, and then to lose the hormones. We don't want to hold on to the hormones. And the way that your body does that is it breaks it down in the liver and then it sends it out through your gut, through your poop. And that's how you get rid of the excess estrogen. So step one, are you pooping every day? If you're not pooping every day, why not? What is holding you back? What's going on in your body? So that's one of the things that I look at that, again, may not always be a conversation in a conventional doctor's office because they may have their specialty. They specialize in hormones or they specialize in gut health, but they're not always, seeing how those pieces will connect together. Because, let's be real, when was the last time that your OBGYN asked you about your bowel movements, right? So, and maybe they did. If they did, amazing. Like I said, I know that there are many, many doctors out there who are fantastic at their jobs and maybe are considering this. I do feel like there's more and more doctors who are considering the holistic perspective and the whole body point of view, which I think is amazing and fantastic. So if your OB is asking you about your bowel movements and if you're pooping every day, yay, you found yourself a good one. Keep them around. If you're listening to this going, wow, I need this. I want to get a better look at what's going on in my body and put all the puzzle pieces together. Well, I'd love to chat with you, my friend. I do work with clients virtually, primarily in the United States, just because there's a lot of logistics involved if you are international. But anywhere in the United States, I'm able to work virtually. So you don't have to be in my immediate area. But I do offer just a free 30-minute consultation. So if you want to just hop on a call and chat and just hear more about this functional type work and how it might be able to support you in your unique situation, I would so love to talk to you. So if you head into the show notes, there's a link there where you can book a free consultation. I would love to chat. So just a quick little recap of today. So major points that we want to think about are just the fact that functional testing and conventional testing are very different. That functional ranges and conventional ranges are very different. And so if you're in a space where your labs have all come back as normal and you're just not able to see anything wrong, your doctor's not seeing anything wrong, functional nutrition might be a wonderful next step for you. Because remember, again, how we really get to the root cause of what's going on is that functional tests don't just ask, is there a problem? They're asking, why is this happening? And that, my friend, is the real game changer for healing. We're looking at the whole body. We're looking at how your body systems interact. And I think that that is super, super important. That's really the gist of functional work in a nutshell. So again, if you'd like to chat, and no obligation by any means, but just to kind of talk through things and see what might be a good next step for you, just hop into the show notes, book that 30-minute free consultation with me, and I'm more than happy to chat. All right, my friend, thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you have the most wonderful rest of your day, and we will connect again next week. Thank you so much for joining me today, my friend. If you loved what you heard, be sure to share with a friend and subscribe so that you can keep coming back for more. If you are ready to take the next step towards getting to the root cause of your endo symptoms like endobelly, pain, fatigue, and so much more, you need to download my free ultimate guide to building your own endometriosis diet. You can find the link in the show notes or at www.endobellygirl.com. Until next time, my friend.